You'll slurp down a slice of raw salmon without blinking. Order the sashimi platter, no hesitation. But hand that same person a piece of raw chicken and watch their face change instantly. Something in your gut just says, no. Here's the weird part. That reaction isn't random. It's not even really about fish versus meat. It's about biology playing out a game you never signed up for. And once you see the rule behind it, you'll never look at a dinner plate the same way again. Let's start with what actually scares people about raw fish. Worms. Yeah, I said it. There's a parasite called anisakis that lives inside fish like salmon and mackerel. And if you eat it alive, it can latch onto your stomach lining. It's nasty. It causes cramping, vomiting, sometimes an emergency room visit to yank it out. So why isn't everyone getting sick from sushi? Simple. Freezing kills it dead. The FDA actually requires any fish sold for raw consumption to spend time in a deep freeze first, either about a week in a regular freezer or roughly 15 hours at a much colder commercial temp. That's it. That's the whole trick. A parasite that's been around for millions of years, defeated by a box that makes things cold. Now here's where it gets interesting. Not all fish carry the same risk. Fish that live in rivers and lakes tend to host way more parasites than fish that live out in the ocean. That's actually one of the reasons traditional raw fish dishes leaned so hard on saltwater species instead of freshwater ones. And salmon? Salmon's a bit of an oddball because it splits its life between the ocean and rivers. That's exactly why farm-raised salmon, grown in totally controlled, parasite-free tanks, became the go-to choice for raw preparations. The ocean isn't magically clean. It's just clean in the one specific way that happens to matter here. Okay, now let's talk about the real reason raw chicken freaks people out. And it's not worms. It's bacteria. Specifically, the kind of bacteria that's really, really good at surviving inside a human body. Raw chicken and raw beef can carry things like Salmonella, E. coli, and Campylobacter. All three of these bugs evolved inside the guts of warm-blooded animals, cows, chickens, pigs. And guess what? You're warm-blooded too. Your body runs at almost the exact same internal temperature as theirs. So bacteria that figured out how to thrive inside a chicken are already halfway to figuring out how to thrive inside you. Same climate, same opportunity. Chicken's actually the worst offender here. Campylobacter alone causes over 1 million illnesses every single year in the U.S., and undercooked poultry is one of the biggest culprits. Public health agencies track it constantly because it just keeps showing up year after year. That's the real reason raw chicken makes people wince. It's not superstition, it's a body count. Now flip back to fish. A cod spends its whole life in water so cold it would give you hypothermia in minutes. The bacteria living in that fish are cold specialists. They're built for freezing temperatures. Drop them into your gut, which is sitting at a cozy 98.6 degrees, and they're totally out of their depth. It's like asking a penguin to survive in Death Valley. They just don't have the tools for it. Scientists who study disease actually have a name for this whole pattern. It's called the phylogenetic distance effect, and it basically says diseases jump way more easily between animals that are closely related. The closer two species are on the family tree, the easier it is for whatever's living inside one to start living inside the other. That's exactly why raw pork has such a brutal reputation. Pigs and humans share a surprising amount of biology, and for centuries, raw or undercooked pork was linked to trichinosis, a nasty parasitic infection. Back in the early 1900s, the U.S. was seeing thousands of cases a year. It took decades of stricter farming rules, better feed regulations, and serious public health campaigns to push that number down to almost nothing today. People didn't need a microscope to know something was wrong with raw pork. They just watched what happened to their neighbors. So here's the ladder. Chicken and beef, moderately risky because we're all warm-blooded mammals or birds. Pork, riskier still because pigs are just biologically closer to us. And then, at the very top of the danger scale, primates. Bushmeat from chimpanzees and gorillas has been tied to some of the deadliest disease jumps in human history. Scientists believe HIV actually originated from a virus in chimpanzees that crossed over into humans through exactly this kind of contact, probably decades before anyone even noticed it was happening. When the animal on your plate is genetically almost identical to you, there's barely any biological wall left standing. The pathogen doesn't have to adapt much at all. But hold on, because there's a wrinkle in all of this. Plenty of cultures eat raw beef with zero hesitation. Steak tartare in France, kibanaye in Lebanon, yukoi in Korea. These aren't weird fringe foods. They're classic dishes served in real restaurants, some of them for centuries. So this fear of raw meat clearly isn't hardwired into us the same way, say, disgust at rotten food is. It's learned. It's regional. It's shaped by whatever food disasters a culture actually lived through. And there's an even better example way up in the Arctic. Inuit communities have eaten raw and fermented meat from seals, whales, and caribou for generations. On paper, that should be incredibly risky, since those are all warm-blooded mammals, way closer to us than any fish. But the animals live their entire lives in near-freezing conditions, which keeps their bacterial makeup totally different from, say, a cow standing around in a warm feedlot. So it's not just about how closely related two species are, it's also about the temperature that bacteria grew up calling home. Two completely different situations, fish in the ocean and mammals in the Arctic, pointing at the exact same underlying rule. Psychologist Paul Rozin spent a huge chunk of his career studying disgust, and his research suggests our food fears work less like hardwired instincts and more like inherited warnings passed down the generations. A culture gets burned badly enough by something once, and that caution sticks around long after the actual danger has mostly disappeared. American nervousness about raw chicken comes from a real, recent history of salmonella outbreaks. Japanese comfort with raw fish comes from thousands of years of coastal communities figuring out exactly which fish, which season, and which prep methods kept people alive. So no, fish isn't magically safer than meat. It's safer for very specific, very traceable reasons. Cold-blooded bacteria that can't survive your body heat. One freezing step that wipes out the single parasite that actually matters. And millions of years of evolutionary distance keeping fish pathogens from ever really getting comfortable inside a human. Meat carries a different kind of risk because the animals we eat are close enough to us, biologically, that crossing the gap is almost effortless for the bacteria involved. So next time you're staring down a plate trying to decide what's safe to eat raw, your gut isn't just being dramatic, it's picking up on something real. It was never really about fish versus meat. It was always about distance.